بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع سنته إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show, Guest of the Week, coming to you from Sharjah TV. As always, I'm your host Ismail, BullocK. Now, in our previous episode, we discussed to some detail about the coronavirus. It's obviously something that we are facing at the moment. And we discussed the Islamic perspective on that, as well as some of the facts. So today we want to continue in this second episode, shedding some more light on the virus, on how we should act and what we should do and what we shouldn't do again. And of course, again, with me for this is Almir, our guest, who's no stranger to the show. Assalamu alaikum. And of course, for those who haven't yet seen the first episode, obviously you work within a hospital, obviously the medical profession, as a specialist in respiratory therapy or respiratory care, which is really the whole respiratory is what we're talking about when it comes to these kind of coronaviruses. This is where they attack, isn't it?
Yes.
Especially this one, we've noticed it attacks the lungs, which is obviously, that is the respiratory system. So today we want to kind of go on to shed a bit more light, talk about that a bit more, focus again and add to some of the do's and don'ts, some of the facts and myths about what we know so far or what we experiencing daily with this virus.
Well, long time no see. We just had an episode last week talking about this, and subhanAllah, in 1 week, many things have changed, and we've seen a worldwide response. We've also seen some research done, new information is coming. And just to remind our viewers that this virus is a new virus. It's relatively, what is it, since November. We're talking about that last week we said that zoonotic transfer from animals to humans happened sometime end of November in China, and then therefore it spread to among humans in a market. It was, I think, animal market and so on. That being said, we are now in March, so that is like less than 4 months. So everything that we know about this virus is quite new, and lots of data is coming from all over the world, how this virus affects the humans and so on. And we even mentioned last week what type of virus it is. We don't have to rehash everything. I think a lot of our viewers are aware about the virus a little bit. Unfortunately, with everything that's true out there, and a lot of our guidelines, of course, are by the World Health Organization, the Center of Disease Control, our Ministry of Health here in UAE, and Dubai Health Authority, among others. There's so many bodies that talk about this, and there's so many guidelines. Yet, even with those guidelines, for some reason or other, the people tend to kind of listen to themselves because they think they're the experts, and a lot of misinformation is out there. And we are here hopefully today to discuss some of those things, that we can squash or quell some of those rumors and stuff like that, because it's wrong. It creates unnecessary panic among people and unnecessary anxiety. And we've seen what's happening around the world, people shopping and kind of rushing into the stores and fighting over each other for what? Subhanallah, we have to tackle this issue in a sane and a proper manner, where we have to be careful, and of course educating ourselves about this. Just like if we're experts in whatever field we are, we're good at that, and we do our research, and we do our job properly. Same thing, we can spend a little bit of time about this and listen to the advice and go out and read from these sources that I just mentioned. And I know for a fact that we as humans, if somebody is a medical professional, gives you an advice from their perspective, some of the terminology may not be understood by regular people, which is fine. It's just something you didn't spend time studying. It's fine. But really, to be honest with you, mashallah, with all these sources I mentioned to you, if you go to their websites and you listen to that, it's broken down in the regular language. that everybody can understand and easy to follow. As long as one can read, alhamdulillah, I hope we all can read, and if we can listen, we can read and listen and get these advices in taking care of, with us, taking it seriously and pay attention to what's being said, and not to act out of emotion, in which we find a lot to be nowadays.
I think one of which we have two, like I guess in most things, we have two extremes. We have one group of people who are saying, oh, this is completely normal. And we mentioned briefly last time, this is just like the flu, this is just like the cold. And then they give you a sheet where they show you all the people that have died in the world for this such and such disease yesterday, and how many died in the world, etc. And then so they completely downplay it to some extent. And then you have people on the other side who are going crazy and saying like this is the end of the world,
exactly,
kind of scenario.
Exactly.
So and this is what Islam teaches us anyway. We have to take the middle path.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا.
Exactly.
We are the people of you. We created you. You are the people of the middle. You don't go to this side, to this extreme, and go to that extreme. You take the middle path.
And even the Prophet said the best of things are the awsatuha, the middle line. So we don't want to be from those people who downplay it.
Exactly.
And we don't want to be one of those people who overreact and go into like a complete panic, and this is the end of the world, and that's it, we're finished, we're doomed, and live their whole life every day crying that this is it. Kind of, there needs to be a balance. And obviously, inshallah, through these kind of programs that spread some kind of information and education,
awareness
helps in these kind of things. Awareness, exactly.
Yes, that's what's needed here. And one, unfortunately, social media is full of people who spreading questionable, if not fake, information. And one, we have to question those things. We cannot just share whatever we see, whatever comes our way, if we don't have a proper source. If you share Ministry of Health of UAE guidelines, for sure, go ahead, do it, because it's a legit source. It's the source that we should all follow, and that's it. That's fine. But if somebody says, "Oh, there is this garlic," perfect, fake news. If you eat garlic and you put garlic around you and whatnot, it will cure or will prevent you to get infected with corona, meaning that no need to wash hands, for example, no need to do all these things. You'll be fine with garlic only. All of a sudden, some places in the world, garlic price skyrocketed. From 2 dirhams, I'm talking about, like in UAE money, went to like 12 or 15 dirhams a kilo.
It's funny because I was usually watching one of the other shows on Sharjah TV that they had, I believe, yesterday or a day before with an Emirati doctor, and they asked that question. They said, what about this fact, that we have garlic and turmeric and ginger? He said, look, those are things that help you to be healthy if you eat them, and help you to have an immune system.
Exactly.
He said, but these are things that if they are part of your daily diet over a long period of time, you regularly eat garlic, ginger, turmeric, it can help to make you have a good immune system. He said, but not all of a sudden now you start eating it, and then, God forbid, a week later you come in contact with coronavirus. He said, it won't make any difference then, because it wouldn't have been in your system long enough.
Not only that, we know for a fact it does help immune system. Garlic, ginger, lemon, vitamin C, all of these things that we should be consuming on a daily basis anyway. Not just now, like you said. It does help immune system. But to say that this is the cure for this and prevention of getting it, no, we cannot say stuff like this. And when we go back and say we have to take things with a grain of salt, these information that we see on the internet, right away they click that button, click that forward, swipe up and share it and whatnot. We have to be really careful what we're sharing, because we may be responsible.
It's true. And there is some really crazy ones I've seen out there, like if you eat ice cream.
Yeah, or if you drink hot water.
Yeah,
if you drink hot water and if you eat ice cream, because ice cream is too cold, it will kill the virus. And if you drink hot water, it will die in it. And I'm like, excuse me, that's the basic anatomy doesn't support that. Because subhanAllah, our bodies are amazing. Allah created our bodies in such an amazing way that because I teach mechanical ventilation, which is these ventilators, these respirators that provided for these sick patients with corona, right? So this is one of my things I do. One of the things I do is the teaching this course, how this interaction happens between patients and the machine, right? Patients who are in a coma and stuff like that. That cannot breathe on their own, they have respiratory failure and so on. And one of the interesting things, before we even start that course, and this course is geared towards doctors, nurses, and others, just a refresher course, or for somebody who wants to train. One of the things we do is, the first lecture we do is anatomy and physiology. We talk about the anatomy of lungs and the function of the nose, for example. It's an amazing thing. I asked the people, I said, if you were to go in North Pole or Canada or Siberia, very cold place, that's minus 25. If that minus 25 air touches your lungs at that temperature, even for 5 seconds, you will freeze. Your lungs will freeze. I'm like, does that happen to us when we're breathing such cold air? They're like, no. I'm like, exactly, because the nose functions for that. Air comes through your nose, goes up, there's a turbulent airflow. It warms it up, subhanallah. Can you imagine, in that half a second that you inhale, from your nose to your lungs, the temperature will be increased from minus 25 to your body temperature, about 35 or 36. Isn't that amazing? Vice versa, if you're in a very hot climate, 55, 60 plus, if you inhale that hot air and gets into your lungs at that temperature, you're going to suffer some mucous membrane damage. Some of your lining of your lungs or your airways may be damaged. But no, it cools it off to the same temperature, 35 or 36. So just knowing simple things like this will make one know, if you drink very hot water, not only are you going to damage your airway, but you're not going to kill the virus because your body's going to cool it off a little bit. Same thing with cold. Subhanallah, it's what it is. But people use this, how can I say it, false logic? Is that what you would say? When you comparing, in English we like to say comparing apples and oranges. Yeah, we know hot water. If you boil things in your stove, right? Yeah, it will kill all the bacteria. It will kill, we know most of them, if not all. If you boil at 100 degrees plus, yeah, for sure. But how can you quantify that and apply it to a human? We cannot have 100 degrees in our bodies and kill it all off, right? So although, subhanAllah, one of the ways our bodies fight it is by raising the temperature to a higher level, because microbes love that 36, 37 degrees. So when it goes a little higher to 39, 40, this is where we are fighting the disease. We go to the fight mode, that our bodies are fighting it off. So all of these things. So coming back now, and we're talking about, this issue of fake news and all of this. And for example, saying that one of the things you said, and very interesting, subhanAllah, is that people say, oh, but this end of the world, this is horrible, what's happening, the potential of it, right? I mean, we're not there yet or whatever, we're not going to be there, inshallah, but one has to just look at history. We had a pandemic in 1918, 1919, the influenza, the Spanish flu, killed millions of people, but people lived. Even Islamic history, we have to go back just a little bit, and we'll find that there were pandemics that were lasting years.
And I even read, which is kind of interesting, because of what we're finding here in the UAE, and many countries have closed the mosque for prayers to stop the spread. And unfortunately, sometimes you find people who come and say negative things, but if we even look at, like you said, in Islamic history, we find through, when Islam was flourishing and a strong Islamic, you could say, large empires. But before I go into that, because that will take some time, we'll just go for a short break. Join us, inshallah, after this break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, just before the break, I started to mention the point that the fact here in the UAE and many other Muslim countries, and even non-Muslim countries that have a Muslim population, have started to either completely stop, and people are catching up now, who said before no, saying yes, let's close them for prayers, simply because you're coming into a closed area, you're spending more than 5 or 10 minutes, you're putting your face on a a carpet where someone else who was infected could have put their
Exactly.
face. So everything, every aspect of where you could possibly pick up, the virus is present. So, rightly so, they've been asked to temporarily stop. And, a lot of people may have thought, but why, and this is the masjid. And what struck me, apart from what I just mentioned, and the fact that Islam, one of the main objectives of the Sharia, of the Islamic law of Islam, is the protection of life.
SubhanAllah.
You have the protection of life. So this is where this comes in. And there's so many other hadith that there is no harm should be given or received. So many different ways. Prophet ﷺ, he would tell the people, and we hear now in the adhans they're saying, Sallu fi buyutikum.
Yes.
Or somewhere, Sallu fi rihabikum.
And that's actually reviving one of the sunnahs.
Exactly. Prophet ﷺ, he said that should be done when there was heavy rain, because of the danger it could be for the people or the hardness.
Exactly.
So you can imagine now with the spread of an illness or a disease, even more so. But so I saw from this Islamic history that there was a time, I cannot give you the quote right now, but it was hundreds of years ago, where there was a very big plague, to the level that was written by the scholars and by the historians, that all of the mosques were closed for a very long period of time.
Yes.
So this is not something new. This is something that was established by the rulers and by the scholars for a long time.
How about giving you something that's very real for us? Talking about Sahaba. This is 640 Anno Domini or Gregorian, you could say. And I think this was 20 years after Hijri. The Prophet ﷺ died 10 years Hijri. So this was about 8 to 10 years after he passed away. Maybe less than that. We're talking about Umar bin al-Khattab time. Yes. He was the Khalifa at that time in Medina. And there was a famous plague, they call it Ta'awun, that happened it came from Byzantine, or we call it Byzantine Ta'awun plague. And it affected mostly Sham area, Damascus and these areas. And we know for a fact there were like two waves. The first wave, in this first wave, we know from history, from Ibn Kathir you can read, that two famous Sahabis died. Abu Ubaidah, he was from the Ashra Mubashirin, who was promised Jannah, from 10 of them, and Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was the scholar of this ummah. So he was not among the 10, but if you say, where was he after 10? Maybe he was the 11th. Like a lot of people nowadays like to put top 10 lists, top 20 lists, top 30 lists. Well, guess what? He was definitely top 15. Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Abu Ubaidah, they died. So Amr bin al-As, he took over the governorship after that or something, just to make a story short. When the second wave came, Amr was a very smart guy. He was an educated man. He understood at that time that people gathering together causes the disease to spread. He advised the people, go to the hills, go to the mountains, go away from each other as far as possible. What does that mean? That means that they're not praying in Jama'ah. They're isolating themselves in such ways, go as far away from each other. One Sahabi, and this is not mentioned, which one, says to him, look at this now. He says to him, your advice is wrong. I accompanied Prophet ﷺ, I was with him, and my donkey is smarter than your advice, or your advice is not as smart as my donkey, or something like that. You're misguided. No, he said, you're misguided more than my donkey. This is the quote. Look at the response of Amr. He says to him, radi anhu, he says, I will not respond to you, nor I will punish you. Because he is questioning the ruler, right? I will not punish you, and I will respond to you like this, I will leave you. But we will have this ruling that we have to disperse, isolate. The news reached Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu. What did he say? He said, Amr did correct. He did what he's supposed to do. And of course, Allah alam, if it was for this reason, definitely was one of the reasons, the plague stopped. And that was done. These are the famous Sahabas. This what happened to them. And we know the story. And we also know throughout the history that many times the Haram was closed. We talked about last week. That Medina, Masjid Nabawi was closed. That all of these. And now we found out 1 week later that most of the mosques all over the world, even in the Western countries where Muslims are minority, and they were not actually being forced by authorities, they said option for you is to close. They decided to close. It's better. What we found out is that people are acting emotionally. How can we close a masjid? This is a travesty. Yawmul Qiyamah is coming. This is a punishment from Allah. And I say to these people, brothers and sisters, this is not a punishment from Allah. It is a test from Allah and might be a mercy for you. One of the sisters said, Subhanallah, this is crazy. You know what she said? She said, finally now, our families will spend more time together in the house. And you know, the kids are in school usually. The husband is at work a lot. He's having so many activities. Now we're forced to isolate as a family. You're going to live together, no? And you're not going to go having all these extracurricular activities, going to the masjid. Now we're going to actually be spending lots of time together, getting to know each other. And imagine, that's a blessing, isn't it? There will be more tarbiyah done towards your children. So those are the positives. Another way is one of the people I talked to, he said, I have pain in my heart because my masjid is taken away from me. I cannot go for Fajr prayer and so on. I say to the brother, may Allah reward you for your pain. You have pain, but if you are patient, you have the sabr, and you're patient with it, then definitely Allah will reward you for it, as if you have prayed. Especially because of your pain, and you're patient now. Your rank will be raised. And also, this disease that's happening, it is a rahmah in a way. Why do I say that? Let me clarify what I'm trying to say. Because for some people, this is like a wake-up call. This is maybe we should go back to Allah, ask Allah for help. So this is rahmah. What I mean by that, people come back to Allah, come back to Islam because of this. Not that we say it's a rahmah that somebody is getting sick or no. No, we're not saying that. We're saying it in this way. And also another way is what we see people do, and this is very sad, is my neighborhood actually, what happened. Masajid are closed. Alhamdulillah, the adhan is still ongoing. Correct? We forget that. Reminding us of prayer times. And also reminding us at the end, and one of the sunnahs revived, that pray in your houses. You know, but well, guess what the people did yesterday? It's very sad. They've actually come outside the masjid, they make a jama'ah. And they prayed one of the prayers, I think it was Maghrib prayer. And they prayed outside in the courtyard of the masjid. The door's closed. In the courtyard of the masjid, they're praying jama'ah. Wallahi, my brothers and sisters, this is going against the rules of Islam. Disobeying the authorities. And also, you are still at a point where you can infect others even though it's outside.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, you could say this is just complete ignorance. Like you said, first of all, it's an official rule given by the Muslim rulers, which we have to obey. And secondly, we know, from common sense, that anyone who really uses their mind can understand the rationale and logic behind doing the rule. And this is just people, like you said, acting out of emotion.
Exactly. And all we need to do is go back. You mentioned, we go back in history and find out that the mosques were closed before. This is not the first time. Did you know, I'm sure I mentioned before that our audience should know that the black stone was gone missing for 7 years or even 20 years, in history. This is only like a couple of 100 years after the Prophet ﷺ passed away. The black stone, Hajar al-Aswad, the one we are, recommended to touch and so on when we are going for Hajj, Umrah and so on, if we're not pushing, shoving other Muslims and so on, it was gone, nowhere to be found. So all of these crises, it happened before. It's not the first time. All we need to know is educate ourselves about these incidents or these, you could say, times in our history and know that it's okay. Life moves on. This disease, yes, there's a potential for it to be bad, but inshallah, it'll be fine as long as we do what we're supposed to do. And I always tell people, what is the thing I should do as a regular person? I say, please, wash your hands, social distancing. Don't worry about anything else. And of course, if you have symptoms, get yourself checked out. Try to be staying away from people as much as possible. I gotta tell you, since last week, we went shopping late one of the weekdays, just to avoid as much crowd as possible. It was a weeknight, very late. And then I was walking in the one of the shopping centers, grocery shopping, and I see these three ladies. They're wearing gloves and they're wearing masks, And I'm telling you right now, they're not wearing regular masks. They're wearing the N95 mask, which is the one we just talked about before the show, which is protects everything, all airborne things. Surgical mask will not protect you from everything, but this particular mask is expensive, it's rare, and there's a world shortage right now everywhere. And I approached them in a nice way, and I said to them, I said, excuse me, I said, Assalamu alaikum, so on. I said, are you sick? If not feeling well. They're like, no. I said, do you mind me asking, why are you wearing that mask? And she said, oh, I'm wearing for protection. I said, protection from what? And she said, protection from, from the virus that's going on. I said, I just noticed that you have gloves on. You're touching all the items in the store, your trolley, the cart, and you're touching your phone, and all of a sudden, you take your hand and you are adjusting your mask by touching your face at the same time. I said, all the germs that were on your glove and everything, you just put it back in your face. And eventually, somehow, will end up to your nose and your mouth or your eyes, which is the way this virus spreads. And she's like, really? Well, I didn't know that. I'm like, plus, besides the point, I said, you're wearing a mask that we are lacking. We're not lacking now, alhamdulillah, we have. But elsewhere in the world,
Yeah.
yes. And there's a potential for it to be lacking more, right? And I said, you're taking away from people who need to wear it. And we know the guidelines are, by Ministry of Health, by CDC, WHO, is if you're not sick, you should not wear a face mask. Any kind of mask, especially the N95 one. And you should not be wearing gloves. All you need to do is do proper hand hygiene. Of course, try limiting touching your face. And social distancing. Go out when you need to go out for grocery shopping, for pharmacy, for things that you cannot miss. But for things that are leisure, that are, I need to go shopping to buy a shirt. Excuse me, you have 5 shirts at home, 8 shirts at home. You don't need the 9th or 10th or 6th shirt. You can survive, you can live, for this month or next month until hopefully we go back to regular business, like we like to say. So we need to be aware of these things, and we need to be, paying attention to this, because the stigma also we cause by wearing the mask outside. If somebody wears a mask and gloves outside, and somebody who comes and says, oh my God, what's going on here? Everybody's sick, this is crazy. That also creates a panic mode. We've seen all these memes on the internet about people buying toilet paper in the West and stocking up. And some other people, there was a guy who bought 17,000 hand sanitizers and toilet paper, whatnot. He went through all the stores in America.
Just going to hold you on that point. We'll continue on that, inshallah, after this break. Join us after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking about this thing where everyone's going crazy and buying things in bulk. And you just mentioned that an individual bought 17,000.
Yeah, he stopped basically by every supermarket with his brother, with a U-Haul truck. It's like a huge truck that you rent. He rented a truck. And he literally bought off all the shelves of all hand sanitizers and wipes and disinfectants and whatnot. He stocked up with 17,000 of them. He went to his garage, he left it there, and then he went on Amazon or one of the websites, and he tries to sell it. And he raised the price. If he bought the item for $1 or $2, he would raise it to $8, up to $70 per item.
That's actually really, if you think about it, it's really disgusting.
Very disgusting. And he wasn't shy by being interviewed by the newspapers. He went off over crazy, went viral, right? And and of course the Amazon and all of the websites, they said, this is price gouging. And they literally suspended his account. They told him to stop it, and he cannot sell anymore. Now he was stuck with 17,000 of these items in his garage. Now lost money, but of course, not more than that, yahi. He ended up, people who needed these hand sanitizers, these things to go and buy, they were not on the shelves anymore. They couldn't get it because he bought all of them. You know what I'm saying? So now he's losing all this money, and people are huge backlash against him, right? And guess what happened? He donated it all to local clinics, hospitals, and so on. Alhamdulillah, at least he pulled himself out of that way. But what we also know here is, you hear reports from people that some pharmacies or some places, whatever, they may raise prices for those items. No, my brothers and sisters, if you see somebody do that, that they raise their prices that are above what they usually are, please notify your local authority. And this is actually advice from the Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Health, that these items cannot be made profit on crazy amount of profit, like people try to raise 2, 3, 400,000% on these items. This is against the law. This is against our religion. I mean, this is the warning from the Prophet ﷺ, known for this, that in the times of crises, you cannot raise commodities, these items or things that are very precious at that time, to raise the prices for them. It's not allowed in Islam. So please report to those authorities, because they need to be either stopped, fined, or they have to reduce the prices to back to the original price. So those are some of the things that we have to be on lookout for. Now, talking about the hysteria surrounding all of this, the fake news that's ongoing, and there's a lot of that. And we need to be the ones who are going to be putting a stop to it. I'm part of some WhatsApp groups, which we have, we have our work groups in the hospital, we communicate. And then you have your own social groups where you talk to. MashaAllah, the brothers that are my group, if they want to post something or ask something, they would post it in the group and ask, Almir, what do you think about this? They seriously want to find out. And I say, this is good, or this is okay, you can forward this, something that we know it's authentic or not. And then he said, Jazakallah khair, that's the reason I'm actually asking. Because, to me, it seems like I should forward it, but I'm like, what, let me just check if this is okay to forward or not. Like some of those things where it says, if you drink shake of lemon and garlic and ginger and all of that in the morning and in the evening, and then you do this for 7 days, you're free from corona, no need to worry, you're immune. Now this is the false thing. They say you're immune, meaning that you could go out there and not worry if you get it or not. And subhanAllah, you may get it, not even know you have it, but because you're like so open to it, and then you may spread it to others.
And then if you see something like that, then you go and search yourself, you'll see that even now, as I read last night myself, they still don't, obviously, like you mentioned, they're still learning. They still don't understand if somebody can build immunity to it, like they do with other illnesses. They said it's quite possible, they're not sure, but it could have the capability, or that somebody could get it, be cured, and get it again. They don't know yet.
Exactly.
So for someone to go and make a ridiculous statement like that.
We do know that some immunity is created from you if you have it. How long it lasts, how effective it is, we don't know yet. Is it lasting a few months, a year, or if it's strong enough for another corona infection coming your way? We don't know that, right? So the main thing is to having these precautions and to always be on the safe side, regarding this, because this is very detrimental to someone's health if you don't pay certain, attention to this. And so you see a lot of people, sharing these things. And what was I going to tell you? There was something interesting that people shared, and I had to literally, sometimes, I get a little bit combative when it comes to this, because I see some nonsense being shared. So sometimes I will be very direct and say, hey, put a stop to this. You cannot just share this just out of the blue. And one thing really that upsets me, and this is what I was going to say, a lot of people are saying this is a conspiracy, that this was a virus created in a lab somewhere, and this is a biological or bioterrorism or biological weapon used against Muslims or against humanity, against poor people, whatever, And let me tell you for a fact, that's not true. Myself, I do listen to experts as well. We have experts in this field that are in virology especially. And this guy, he says very, very cleanly, he's a professor in one of the universities in US, who wrote books about this. And he says, just like with anything, we can find the carbon dating, like we can tell when this virus, how old is this virus? That, it needed a certain change. This virus needed a certain change to happen for it to jump from animals to humans. Why didn't this virus jump before? Because it could not survive in humans before. We never gotten it because there was some change in its code. that was able. And we can find how old this code is by certain proteins, by certain composition of molecules with the environment and matching it. This is how it's done. So that somebody created this in a lab 20 years ago and waited to release it, false. Please, brothers and sisters, stop sharing this nonsense. This is not true. And you know what he said? He made a sarcastic comment. SubhanAllah, he's like, you know what? I don't think we're this smart to create a virus like this, because this is an effective virus. He's like, I don't think we're this smart to make an effective virus like this. That there is so far no cure. There is lots of research being done as we speak. Vaccine, actually, as a matter of fact, was given yesterday to some patients already. But you have to know, vaccines may be there, but they may not be safe. That part takes 6 to 12 months, even longer, to be safe for patients to use it. So that means we're still away, but alhamdulillah, there's research being done. There's another company in Germany and other places. There's a lot of stuff going on. Alhamdulillah, people are putting their effort. You know, in a way, think about this. I think the human solidarity is also happening now. You feel people coming together from all over the world and kind of fighting this issue together. This is a war. You know, when we talk about war, we usually think of First World War, where nations were fighting nations, right? Or, you know, Second World War, same thing. And you know, when you see it, we are fighting a war. Yes, we are fighting a war, but we're not fighting each other. There's no humans to human fighting. This is a fighting a virus. This is a common goal for everybody. So we have to do our part. So when a masjid is closed in Malaysia or Saudi or US or Canada or Germany, alhamdulillah, it's for the better of people. Even the churches, everything else is closed. Malls are closed. There's limits for that, limits for this. It's fine. All we have to do is we have to do our part. This is the collective effort. We don't want to be the one, and I was telling like last week, imagine, you know, without mentioning this country, but you know, it's close to me, there's a guy who's a truck driver, comes back from a very infectious area. And he's like, the country says to him, you should stay in quarantine for 2 weeks because you just come from that country. You may be a carrier of this virus. You know what he says? I'm not gonna stay in quarantine. What's the point of staying in this quarantine? I'm just gonna go do whatever I do. I'm home now. I need to go out and go to the, go to the bar and go to grocery shopping and do all of these things. There's no need for me to stay in quarantine, even if I have symptoms or not. And literally, he's not listening. And he went out and did this. And we have reports also from a guy who's went to also infectious area, declined when he was asked at the border, that he said, where do you, or when he was in the country, did you travel anywhere? He's like, no, I did not. Meanwhile, he was there and he contracted the virus and he spread it to about 300 people that are in quarantine.
If you want to hear this, without mentioning the country, but it's a well-known story, and this country, there is maybe now 7,000 or 8,000 cases, if not more. And this woman, she's known as Woman 31. Now, what this woman is, she was in a car accident. They took her to hospital to get her checked up. They said, you have a fever. The coronavirus is around. You should get checked out. She's refused to get checked for the coronavirus. She then went to a religious gathering in a particular church, I think it was, where there were thousands of people. She then went after that and had lunch in a public hotel buffet. And they estimate that from her alone, there is anything from 1,500 to 1,800 cases in that country that can be traced back to her.
Yes.
One person. So this is why when people play down this whole thing about why should I and staying away from people, if one person could spread to 1,500, then this shows you why we have to follow these precautions and the advices that are given by experts. We're not the experts. None of us know about microbiologism generally. None of us know about virology.
How much time do we have? I have something.
Probably have a couple of minutes, but listen to the advice.
Very simple. We find both of us, we've seen some of our Islamic preachers, they are going out there and downplaying some of the issues. Without mentioning a country also, I'll tell you, somebody who is listened to a lot says, I know there is no salah in the masjid and all of this, but you know what, brothers, let's get together tomorrow for Fajr, let's go to the masjid and let's pray, because the dua in jama'ah is amazing. We have to ask Allah to help us in jama'ah. This is where the dua gets accepted. And to be honest, brothers and sisters, this really ticked me off to a level that I usually don't get ticked off. And this is irresponsible, unacceptable. You are going against, of course, rulers. Secondly, you're going against Islamic principles.
Not just that, I mean, you'll find that and this is the problem as well, we have to also look at who do we go for, because there are Islamic preachers, but as such, and maybe even now the word preacher
you do have a point. You do have a point, but
sometimes you have people who are.
But those people are listened to a lot.
Exactly.
So this is why we have to say
who are
that,
more
you know
of,
what,
you
you have to be careful for this. You cannot say stuff like this. So the advice is, you know, if this guy says this to you, you know what, be careful what you hear from him.
Well,
it's
like we always say, you know, you look at when these kind of issues, and generally big issues like this, you always turn back to people who are of a scholarly level, because to some extent, everybody on the internet, to some extent, can be a motivational kind of Islamic speaker, and can have a crowd, and can put out a lot of good content. But these are not the people we look to see, you know, what's wrong and right at the end of the day. Generally speaking, in these kind of complex issues, we look at.
I will finish. I think we are about to be done. Brothers and sisters, advice. I know masjid, because this is the show that we talk about a lot about not being able to go to the masjid. And you know, think about this way. We are asked about something that is easily very difficult for us to separate ourselves, but it's not. It's easy to be done physically, but spiritually we're being hurt. I agree with that 100%. But imagine protection of life is so important in Islam that we have to protect a life even if we have to consume, for example, haram. Are we being asked to eat pork? For example, imagine there's no food, only pork is there. Are we being asked to eat pork? At that point, we will actually have to be eating pork to survive, because that's how important life is. Are we being asked to do something like this? No. Are we being stopped from praying salah, eating food? No. So these things we're not even to that level yet. Inshallah, we'll not get there. But we have to put things in perspective. Always say, put things in perspective.
Jazakallah khair for coming on. And again, we thank the viewers for tuning in. And hopefully you can take away some of this. Follow the precautions. We can not emphasize as much as possible. Follow the advice, the regulations that are given to you wherever you may be. If you've been told to not pray in the mosque, don't pray in the mosque. Try your best to stay at home. Try your best to avoid going out. You know, basic hygiene. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Follow the advice. This is the way of a Muslim who is acting upon the way of Islam, is to follow these rules and regulations. And ultimately, as we know, and force mostly, is trust in Allah and make dua to Him. Yes. And then follow as we say, tie your camel, as the Prophet Muhammad said to his companion. Follow the steps that are necessary, listen to the advice, and we ask that Allah keeps us all safe and we see the passing of this virus, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.